So the question for today is, what is your take, or what do you really think was going on when Jesus said turn the other cheek?
Hmm.
What's that all about?
Turn the other cheek. You have heard that it was said, right? An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. But I tell you, if someone strikes you on the right cheek with the right hand, turn them the other cheek also. Yeah, I never knew what to do with that. I grew up in a house where the the whole idea was, if somebody starts a fight with you, don't fight back, don't hit back, because Jesus said turn the other cheek. And Jesus gets this reputation for being a wuss and creating wusses because there's so much misunderstanding around that. And one of the things that's so beautiful about Jesus is he refuses to let oppression remain oppression. And let's just get off the table right now. Jesus is not saying put up with abuse. Jesus suffered violently, but he suffered willingly, voluntarily. So what Jesus experienced on the cross does not legitimize or does not excuse any person's experience of oppression or of victimization, because Jesus was a victim. Jesus stepped into that voluntarily with his dignity intact. And so Jesus is not saying be abused, be a victim. There's a guy named Walter Wink, and his theory, he did a lot of study on the first century dynamics, the cultural elements that were going on in this, because there's three parts to it. The first part is if someone strikes you on the right cheek with the right hand, turn them the other cheek also. And the second one is if someone takes you to court for I think it's your cloak, something like that, then give them your tunic also. It's this clothing thing. And then the last one is if someone asks you to go 1 mile with them carrying their pack, then go with them 2 miles. And the first thing about the cheeks. So in first century culture, it's like most in the majority world today, places where we don't have the same kind of hygiene that we have here in the Western world. In first century culture, the left hand was used to, let's just say, all the kind of bodily function things, like cleaning up after using the restroom, for example. So there were a lot of things the left hand would not be used for. And Jesus specifically says if someone strikes you on the right cheek with their right hand, which if you picture that, it's right cheek, right hand would be more of a backhand type motion, which is very demeaning. And so you don't backhand an equal, you backhand somebody that you believe you are better than. So if somebody has just backhanded you, they're trying to put you lower than themselves. They're trying to demean you. And Jesus says, turn them the other cheek also. So if I turn my left cheek to somebody who's just backhanded me, they would never hit me with their, no matter how demeaning or whatever the dynamic of the relationship, they would never hit with their left hand. And so if I turn this way and turn my left cheek, then all of a sudden, if they're going to backhand me, they're going to hit me in the nose. And that just is this kind of awkward thing. And one of the theories is that by Jesus saying that, he's saying as you turn the other cheek, you force this person into a position where they can no longer backhand you. And so if they're going to strike you, they're going to have to use a fist, and they're going to have to treat you like an equal. And so what you're doing is instead of striking back, and instead of simply becoming victimized or putting up with it, you're actually leveling the playing field, where you have gone from inferior to now you've leveled the playing field. And the second one is having to do with if someone takes you to court and sues you for your cloak, give them your tunic also. And I might have gotten the clothing items mixed up, but the point is, why would somebody be suing somebody for their clothes? That's not what we sue people for. So one of the things that's happening here is there's just absolute poverty. The person that's being sued is in such poverty, there's no money even for them to be taken to court for. So it's literally the clothes off their back, which is a huge, huge injustice in its very self. And so Jesus is kind of proposing, look, if somebody, wants to sue you for your jacket, just take off your shirt as well. Just take off I think the word that he referenced refers to kind of your undergarment. It's like your, not necessarily your lowest layer, but right above your underwear. And so the theory is he's painting this picture of somebody taking off their clothes in the courtroom. and essentially on one level making a mockery of the whole system. Like, seriously, this is how ridiculous we're going to be, is that we're going to sue people for their clothing. Okay, fine then, just take it all then. And the other thing is we have to keep in mind is that in Jewish culture, shame wasn't on the person who was naked or who was exposed in their nakedness necessarily. The shame also fell on the person who witnessed the nakedness, who experienced the nakedness of the other. And so you're kind of, in a sense, putting the shame back on the others by exposing their nakedness and, I guess, kind of poverty of character and of justice by exposing the system for what it is, and just kind of stripping down. You're stripping the system of the falsity and any dignity, or false dignity, I should say. The last thing, quickly, was go the extra mile. And it's documented in multiple places that a Roman soldier could ask a Jewish person to carry their pack for 1 mile, but by law they were limited to forcing them to carry their pack for 1 mile. And so Jesus says, look, instead of just trying to refuse and then getting yourself in trouble with the Roman soldiers, you had no power there. Instead of refusing, and instead of just carrying the pack for a mile, the theory was that as soon as you go past that first mile, that soldier who had limits upon him about how far he could make you carry his pack, he's actually going to start sweating because he could get in trouble from his superior officer. Because you kind of just imagine yourself, you're just walking along, and the soldier is like, okay, you can give it back now, right? You're hitting that mile mark, and the soldier's like, okay, done, give it back. And they're like, no, it's okay, I got this, we're cool, it's okay, I'm fine actually. And all of a sudden it reverses the role, where the one who was trying to oppress, the one who was trying to take advantage of, now there's been a role reversal where they're feeling vulnerable, where they're feeling this sense of, oh man, like what's going to happen to me now? And so through all of those, Walter Wink's theory is that was Jesus's way of infiltrating and subverting the powers that would be, the anybody that would backhand you and have the nerve to treat someone else that way, anybody that would sue you for your clothing when you didn't even have any money to be taken to court for, and the Roman soldiers that would oppress by forcing burdens upon the Jews. Walter Wink's theory was, look, we don't fight back the way they're fighting us. We don't retaliate the way that they retaliate or the way that they engage us. But we don't become victims either. And so it's like this, he calls it Jesus's third way. It's this way of navigating between victimhood and the victim, which often happens, becoming the bully. Quick little sidebar, there's actually this whole theory, it's kind of a triangle of relationships where you have victim, rescuer, and perpetrator. And often what happens is one person, right, will be a victim to some perpetrator. Some other person will see them and want to rescue them, but then what inevitably happens is the triangle shifts, and the one that was the victim often turns into the perpetrator. And the triangle just shifts around, and how do we get off of that triangle? And Jesus has given us a way to get off of that triangle, and he's saying, don't fight fire with fire, but don't just be set on fire. We're going to find a third way between this so that you maintain your dignity and you expose the poverty of the system that's around you.